What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I'm coming at you with an updated Labrynth deck profile. This is a deck I haven't tinkered with in such a long time, and it's gotten so much support. I think the last time I played this was in Cyberstorm Access format, where I took it to the Baton Rouge Regional, and I was able to top 8, but that was like such a different time for Labrynth, and it was like when Furniture Labrynth was first getting popularized as a version. And it's just evolved so much that I really want to do an updated profile sort of with new support it's gotten and just how it fits in the current meta. Before hopping into it, I do want to let you guys know we did actually just pass 15,000 subscribers, but the goals don't stop there. I'm now trying to get to 16,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy this Yu-Gi-Oh! Content and you like what you see here, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out what I do here on the channel. And with all that being said, let's hop into this Labrynth deck profile. Alright, so Labrynth, it's a deck that's really fun to play with because it has so many different versions you can play and so many different like flex spots, I'm gonna call them, that you can sort of mess around with. And for that, I think like there's no solved best Labrynth list. Like there's so many lists, like the Dinkabooey list originally. There's like Hand Trap, Furniture Lab, there's Trap Lab. This is just what I'm messing around with. Again, I don't think there's a 100% correct way that's just like the best version of Labrynth. But I'm just gonna show off what I'm playing, starting with the 3 Ariana. So I am deciding to maximize this Ariana at 3, and I'm not playing the red one, Ariana. I was originally, but there's an issue with like too many normal summons, so then I was playing 2 and 1. However, because I decided to max out on another card, seeing this card is much better than seeing Ariana. So even though in the grind the red maid is like really good, I'm just deciding to max 3 of her to fit with another card, and I'll sort of touch on that when I get to that card. But yes, you want to maximize 3 of this because she's your best starter, and you're going to summon her a lot throughout the game. Then for boss monsters, I am on the 1 Lovely, arguably the best card in the deck, despite being the worst draw, and you will see her every hand because that's the rules of Labrynth, and 1 Lede Labrynth. So these are the 2 boss monsters of the deck, and I'm only running 2. I've had lists in the past playing even up to 3 Lede Labrynth, and when the deck first came out, I was actually on 2 of this. But the way the deck has evolved and like the more optimal ways to play it in my eyes, I think 1 and 1 is perfectly fine, although I have even tinkered with 2 Lede. The issue with is, even though Lede can summon herself from hand, like you don't want her in every hand. In fact, and if you ever draw multiple, it's really bad. You just want to kind of play the most playable cards on your first turn and even your opponent's first turn in this list. So we want to cut down on the boss monsters that don't really do much for your game plan on turn 1 or turn 0. So these are the best cards like in the deck, and you do need them, but you don't really want to see them opening hand, so we have slimmed them down to 1 each. Up next is a card I haven't gotten to profile before. It is the 3 Arius. So this card is really interesting because I think it's where some contention with a bunch of different lists actually come into play. In fact, when I was like, all the times I've tried to mess with this deck, this card is the most like contentious slot in the deck because I think you either play this card at a lot of copies or you play it at 1 in like a very standard copy, or you don't play it at all, is what I've seen the most in Labrynth. And I think when she first came out, people were still like figuring out what's best with her. The way I see her now is almost like the next copy of Furniture. Like people have wanted more copies of Stove and Chandragler, and I think like Arius kind of plays the same role. She helps you play turn 0, which is huge. And she's also a good amount of follow-up, and her being level 6 is also pretty relevant. This card just allows you to play on turn 0, and I think that's really important because that's kind of the goal of, I think, Furniture Labrynth now, is to set up a lot of stuff on your opponent's first turn and sort of play it like your engine is your go second cards, kind of like how Havent was for Tier Limits. And I think Arius is really good at that, and I am maximizing all 3 copies. Continuing on with Furniture, since if I'm going to call Arius Furniture, I guess I'll say continuing on with Furniture, I have the 3 Stovey, arguably the best Furniture because he special summoned himself and he's level 2 Dark. But I mean, we're still going to maximize the 3 Chandragler alongside of the Stovey because you just want to see any number of copies of these. I mean, preferably like 1 and 1. You don't really want to see too much Furniture, I guess. And then I'm on the 1 Coup Clock. So this is, I think, a pretty standard ratio. You can up the Coup Clock count. Again, it helps with the sort of turn 0 playing that Labrynth is attempting to do. However, Coup Clock is like the worst version of that because he almost does nothing on his own. And I mean, he really does nothing on his own, and you can argue Arius does as well, but Arius combos on turn 0 with so many cards, and Coup Clock specifically often needs a Furniture. But yeah, just these 7 Furniture, like again, you can go multiple Coup Clock, but I think you start running into even more awkward hands, which this deck does already have a slight issue with. So I'm just playing these 7 Furniture. Again, I think it's a decently standard ratio. Lastly, for monsters, I am on the 2 Backjack. So I've been kind of off and on with this card. I've had versions play 3 Backjack. I even took him out entirely. The idea behind Backjack is he combos very well with furniture, allowing you to do even more stuff turn 0, and almost any point once you see a furniture. Like any point in the game, drawing Backjack will be a pretty good draw. So I think 2 is fine. I think you can mess with 3. I think you don't have to play this card, but it does raise the ceiling turn 0 by a lot. Like if you're going second versus Snake Eye and you can like furniture discard Backjack, and Backjack finds either Trap Trick or Daruma Karma Cannon, you just have more ways to see Karma Cannon, which is kind of a game-winning card versus Snake Eye, which is like obviously the most popular deck this format. And then post game 2 and 3, depending on what you're siding, having this card in your list somewhere is really good, especially if you're siding like the Rescue Ace stuff. So I do like main decking the 2 Backjack. For spells, it's short and sweet. I am on the 1 Labrynth, and the 1 Labrynth setup. Labrynth setup is a card I also haven't profiled in this deck before because it really wasn't like popularized until Dinkabooey played it at that one YCS. I don't remember which YCS it was, but he sort of popularized this card in usage because you can like Arius and Trap Trick, and there's a bunch of ways turn 1 if you're going first to like make this live. One of the worst things about Labrynth is it's a trap deck that is not actually that great at going first, believe it or not. If you're like unfamiliar with the strategy, it actually is not amazing going first. The engine sets up 2 interrupts at best, which is a Labrynth, and your Lovely Pop. Now, if you get to like Lede combos and set like other traps from your deck, it can end up being more interrupts, but generically the engine sets up 2 interrupts. Having setup and being able to use it first turn makes it to where you're really getting 4 interrupts as long as you're resolving everything, and then you get to set 2 powerful traps off of your setup. So I think going first, this card is like mandatory if you're a go first list. I think a few months ago, like 4 or 5 months ago, there was a dude who won a regional with like a going second lab list, maining Phantasme and the Rescue Ace cards, which I've also tinkered with. In fact, that might have been longer ago. I think that was still an Unchained format. That was like before Snake Eye. But yeah, I think if you're going first, like setup is really, really strong. And even though it's not a card you want to see because it's a spell, just having access to search this and doing the setup combos is very good, so I am choosing to play it. Also, I think it's just like probably the best Labrynth art in the game. I just think it's pretty adorable. Alright, getting on to the bulk of what Labrynth is, of course, the trap cards. We have the 3 Big Welcome. This is obvious. This is just like the best trap card in the deck, the best engine card in the deck, outside of maybe like Lovely since she's the payoff. But yeah, maximizing this is very obvious. But I am also maximizing Welcome, which isn't something everyone does. Some people play 2 Welcome, which I've also done in the past, but I'm really liking multiple Welcome Labrynth, and by multiple I mean 3, because I'm maximizing the 3 Arius. Seeing this turn 1 is just like one of the better cards to see with your Arius. So I like, even though you might draw too much Welcome sometimes, having Arius Welcome turn 0 is very good because that can lead into many other interactions turn 0, because you can special Ariana, which can get you maybe the coup clock for the furniture you had in hand, and then you can just do a lot, right? So it's just another way like Labrynth pieces the puzzles together to get to a bunch of interruptions turn 0, so I am maximizing all the welcomes, and it just means we will draw engine more consistently, and 3 welcomes also give you better matchups into things like Runic or anything that's banishing your cards, so yep, 3 welcomes and 6 total welcomes. Next, I have the 3 Trap Trick. This card is imperative in the Arius builds because it's just another card Arius can combo with to get you to either Daruma Karma Cannon or Big Welcome or Welcome. And of course, seeing this turn 1 with Arius is very strong because it sets up your Labrynth setup the best because it instantly gets the cards you need. There's other ways to get set up live with furniture and actually hard drawing like certain Labrynth cards. This is the best way to see it, and Arius plus Trap Trick is very strong. This is often either getting you your Welcome cards, or it is searching one of 2 traps that I'm playing that are sort of like the best Trap Trick targets. Obviously, the first one is Daruma Karma Cannon, just like the best trap card I've seen in like a Yu-Gi-Oh meta, like a standalone trap in ages. Like the last time I can think of a trap being this good was sort of 2021, like early 2021 or late 2020. Ice Dragon's Prison was pretty insane. This is like infinitely better than that, and Daruma Karma Cannon has just been destroying this meta for me in so many different ways. Like I've been playing a bunch of Paleo Tier, where this card single-handedly wins me most of my Snake Eye matchups. It's just bonkers, and the fact that this deck gets to abuse it probably better than any other deck. Yeah, 3 Daruma Karma Cannon in this format is definitely something I would max, and then you can optimize your side deck for the matchups where this card isn't good, and you can like side these out for D-barriers versus like the fusion decks. And then the next best like Trap Trick target is the Dogmatica Punishment. This card is very good for a couple of reasons. One, it's just like great spot removal, and it procs your Labrynth cards. We actually don't have many trap cards that aren't engine that proc your trap cards. Like Back in the day, you would have a bunch of like Ice Dragon's Prisons or even Ichiroku's Ledger Book or something to proc your Labrynth effects. Dogmatic of Punishment is like the most played one now. You want a lot of stuff from the extra deck as utility, and it's just, you know, again, really strong spot removal. You're not upset if you see this off Backjack. Pretty solid interrupt turn 0 as well with Arius, so that's sort of the reason that we're running the punishments and the karma cannons. Then I have 2 transaction rollback here. You like 3 is a lot. Some people play 3 because you want to maximize seeing it, and I've even seen some lists play Morella to dump the transaction rollback, and that's pretty nifty. And I tried it a little bit because obviously I want to play some Paleos. But overall, I think 2 is the best number so that you don't see just like too much of it, because yeah, a lot of rollback and you have the Backjacks, and suddenly you're running a lot of cards that if you draw transaction rollback plus Arius, it's like not a combo. If you don't draw furniture plus these cards, it can be really bad. This is one of the best ways for the engine to play around Ash, and I think running 2 of it is solid. 1 of it just doesn't feel like enough. Like, you're not going to see it that often, even though 1 is probably fine. And 3 is a lot. You'll play around Ash probably better in your better hands and like your high roll hands, but you're going to see a lot of very awkward hands if you run 3 rollback in this version, I think. Then I am playing some hand traps, which, I mean, the Labrynth version I used to like playing ran like 12 hand traps when Gamma was at 3. We don't have that anymore. I'm playing the hand trap I think is best in Labrynth, and that's Nibiru. The reason I think this is best in Labrynth is because the furniture combo really well with it, being able to activate this and then discard it for a furniture. So you just end up like removing the whole board and they don't get their token, which some decks like Rescue Ace comes to mind like specifically need that token to keep playing. So being able to get rid of that token is huge, and it makes Nibiru even stronger than it like normally is. And then I'm playing 2 Imperm alongside of it. This is technically also like a bit of engine because you can trap trick for it. You can see it off Backjack. It's a normal trap you can keep setting with Lovely, so it does have some synergy in the deck. Only 2 copies because I was at 35 and then I added these cards in, and I really only had the spot for 2 Imperm. I guess you could switch it around, play like 3 Imperm, just 2 Nibiru, but Nibiru's like just very high impact versus certain decks in the format. It has bad matchups as well, kind of similar to Daruma Karma Cannon, so you can optimize your side deck to take out the nibs when you need to. Alright, on to the extra deck, and the Labrynth extra deck is quite a wild thing, and it changes a lot based on what you're playing. Like, if you're playing Super Poly, your extra deck's going to look quite different from this. If you're not playing Backjack, there's cards you won't run. And I'm not going to pretend this is a good extra deck because I'm missing quite a few cards for a fully optimized Labrynth extra deck. So I'll be showing what I'm running and showing and then explaining what I think could be better. Because yeah, I'm not going to pretend this is an amazing extra deck, but some things are like pretty standard. I'm on the 2 Muckraker. This card just helps you, I mean, it's not like additional follow-up, and it can, like, if you special summon Lede, this can end up getting the Lede and then bringing it back in attack position, which is something that comes up. It can discard transaction rollback or Backjack, which is good. I don't know, the extra deck doesn't come up too much, but if something does come up, honestly, Muckraker is the card that comes up the most for me. I have 1 Relinquished Anima for the Backjack. If you're playing Backjack, I think you play this. Then I have 1 SP Little Knight, which, if you don't have access to this card, there's a bunch of cards you can play over this slot that I'll explain. Yeah, you don't need the SP Little Knight. In fact, sometimes you're locked into Welcome and you're locked into Fiends, so this could probably be like Phoenix or Cerberus if you don't have access to this card, but I think if you do have access to SP, there's no reason not to play it. I have an Underworld Goddess just to deal with like unaffected monsters, which is, you know, we run Daruma Karma Cannon, so I don't know how much you actually need this card. Again, there's a bunch of things you could replace over this, like multiple copies of a few cards I'll show, but I have the Underworld Goddess. Here's one of those cards I've been speaking about. I only own 1 Chaos Angel. If you own multiple of this, you can take out the Underworld Goddess for one of these. You can take out the SP, to be honest. I only have 1 Chaos Angel, but I think playing 2 of this is not terrible. You should bare minimum be playing 1 though, because it's really strong. Enigmaster Packbit is another very cool card. In fact, honestly, I should have put this with my punishment targets because I have a lot of that. So I know I just showed this, but I'm going to show it again later with my punishment targets, so pretend you didn't see that. So yeah, the 1 Chaos Angel. Then for some Xyz monsters, I have a Baguska because, I mean, this is technically makeable with your Arianas, and it's a Fiend, so you're not like locked out of it. And then another card you should definitely up if you have multiple copies is Typhon. I think you should be playing 2 Typhon in this deck. If you have access to it, again, you can take out the Underworld Goddess, the SP. This is something I think you really should be playing 2 of because it comes up a lot. You can also take out one of these punishment targets because I have a lot of them in here and you probably don't need that many for just 2 punishment. But yeah, there is the Typhon. Alright, now the rest is just punishment targets. Again, these can be super poly targets. These can be like better cards you want to make, like Typhon and Chaos Angel. This is just what I had on hand. The 1 Bucephalus, which dumps the Garura. So this, like, your goal is to dump Garuro, but sometimes their monster attack is too high for punishment, so you send the Bucephalus to dump this, and Bucephalus actually has another target you often send if you have access to it, which would be, I'm running the Baphomet, I think this one's name is, and then there's Chimera that the Bucephalus can send as well, and honestly, you should be running the Chimera. Okay, it's very funny that this extra deck monster had just like a Labrynth sleeve, but yeah, you should definitely be running that Chimera with the Baphomet. I just do not own that card, so it's not in here. Then I have the one Natis, which is a really good punishment target. Obviously, it's like the standard. For the Synchros, I have the Packbit and the Malong. Yeah, I haven't run this in a while. I forgot his name for a second there. But this is really good to bounce certain things you don't want destroyed. So versus Snake Eye, you can bounce things that, you know, or I guess this was really popular versus Fire King specifically when you didn't want like Garunix to proc. So that comes up. Packbit is very good versus Melodious because you can put their cards in the Pendulum Zone and then they won't be able to Pendulum Summon. Like you can send Packbit, send one of their monsters off punishment, and then Packbit effect, discard a card, put one of their cards in the Pendulum Zone, and then they shouldn't be able to Pendulum Summon at least, which is nice. It's one of your better interactions because that deck has Aria that protects them from punishment eventually, so you tend to want to use it early, but I think Packbit is one of the better cards there. It has a lot of other interactions as well. I think Packbit's an insane punishment target. And then lastly, I have the Aggregator, which I think this card is just best versus Fluandereeze specifically. Otherwise, you definitely don't need to play this card. But yeah, those are the punishment targets I'm playing. And I believe that is a 15-card extra deck. That's going to do it for this Labrynth deck profile. The extra deck was definitely impromptu. I just do not own like the most optimal Labrynth extra deck because if I was going to take this deck to an event, which I have considered it, I would just be borrowing the second Chaos Angel and the second Typhon, so yeah, feel free to do what you want with that extra deck. Again, if you're playing Super Poly on the side, it's going to look very different. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Let me know down below how you're enjoying Labrynth this format if you're playing it. What are some cards I could maybe be playing that could optimize the list or might be fun to try out? I'll be sure to read those down below. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.